Thank you for joining us. I'm Christina Ferrick.
And I'm Juan Condi. In our continuing series of special reports, The Brunswick Stew, a local citizens group is asking 8 News to help shine some light on how their local government is doing business.
You guys have uncovered some issues that really raise some red flags.
Oh, yes, we have.
You basically said you're not going to put up with that or take that anymore.
We're not going to take that.
One of the issues that really has folks fired up in Brunswick County is the county government ignoring blatant safety violations, putting families at risk every time they visit the local DMV.
Investigative reporter 8 News investigative reporter AJ Legault has this special report.
Built in 1854, overlooking the main drag in Lawrenceville sits the historic Brunswick County Courthouse. Justice is no longer the building's main function, but it still houses the local DMV and the county treasurer's offices. A steady stream of citizens can usually be found coming and going through the front door. And our investigation uncovered that every one of them is being put at risk of serious injury.
So, safety issue.
After years as a Virginia state trooper, Bill Hudson's now retired and calls Brunswick County home. Just discussing the situation at the courthouse gets him hot under the collar.
It's just gross negligence as far as I'm concerned.
What Bill calls gross negligence is the way the county's handled structural problems with the courthouse's portico and cupola. Back in 2009, the Virginia Department of Historic Resources commissioned a condition assessment of the building. What was found were a number of structural issues that were, quote, cause for concern. Roof leaks compromising a truss and the girder that supports the north side of the cupola. Bird droppings holding moisture and hastening the deterioration of the lightly framed portico ceiling. Increasing loads on the fragile area standing directly above the front door. The report goes on to say a structural engineer was needed immediately, that it's a matter of some urgency, and that until the engineer's recommendations are fully implemented, county employees and the public need to be protected from falling debris. An engineer was hired. In his report, he concurs with the previous findings and says some things need to be done immediately. Cordon off the entire portico, prohibiting the use of the portico and front entrance. Erect scaffolding under the entire portico ceiling of sufficient strength to protect against collapse of the ceiling. That report was dated October 8th, 2009. Fast forward 3 years and we find the engineer's safety recommendations have been almost completely ignored.
The recommendation was the entire portico should be scaffolded off, and that certainly is not done.
The entire portico is supposed to be cordoned off. That also hasn't happened.
As you can see, anybody can walk up on the portico. It's not even barricaded by caution tape or anything. It just has a piece of string up there and part of that's down.
Bill is not the only citizen concerned by the county's apparent disregard for safety.
My 1-year-old son right there, if I, walk by and all this stuff fall on us and something happen, we'd be out back. It's crazy.
Bill, you said you've brought this to the county's attention?
Yes, numerous times.
What have they done about it?
Nothing. Not a thing.
So we took the issue to Brunswick's county administrator, Charlotte Woolridge.
How come some of the repairs at both William and Mary and then the private engineer that you hired said it needed to be addressed immediately haven't been done?
From our perspective, it has been addressed. The scaffolding on the courthouse meets OSHA standards, so in our opinion, it has been addressed.
No matter what question we asked Woolridge, we got the same baffling answer. Listen to the exchange.
The engineer's report says that the entire area under the portico needs to be cordoned off. It isn't right now. Why is that?
From our perspective, we are in compliance with the report. It meets all of OSHA standards.
Should people be up there on that area under the portico that's not protected by scaffolding?
The entire area is protected, and OSHA indicated that we are in compliance.
Do you believe county employees or the public are in any way being put at risk with the situation at the old courthouse as it stands right now?
Absolutely not. Again, we are in compliance with OSHA standards.
The answers are baffling for a number of reasons. OSHA, a federal agency, doesn't even operate in the Commonwealth. Look, you go to OSHA's website, put in Virginia, and it says you've chosen a state which operates its own occupational safety and health program. In Virginia, all issues regarding workplace safety are handled by the Virginia Department of Labor and Industry. And we found through Freedom of Information requests that Brunswick County has no record whatsoever that they're in compliance with OSHA or any other state or federal agency's safety standards. Eventually, Charlotte Woolridge told us someone in her office had a phone conversation with OSHA, but they don't have the name or number of the person they spoke with.
What's OSHA had to say about that situation then?
Okay. OSHA said that this is protective scaffolding. This is not scaffolding that you would typically use on construction site. And because it's protection scaffolding, we are in compliance with their laws and regulations.
The only documentation Brunswick has to back up their assertion is this letter from a scaffolding salesman. He tells the county that what they've set up is not by OSHA's definition a scaffold because it's not being used to support employees or materials, and therefore is not subject to inspection requirements.
But think about that for a second. The county is claiming that because no one is climbing on this scaffolding, it therefore is not scaffolding by OSHA standards. See, they have signs that say not for use. They're taking that to mean it's safe. But they're missing the point entirely. The issue is not whether all this scaffolding is safe. The issue is whether the scaffolding is adequate to protect folks from being hurt should the ceiling up above it collapse.
That's a very real possibility, according to the engineer's report, which once again says scaffolding needs to be put up under the entire portico to protect against collapse. So when it comes to the safety of people using this courthouse, it seems Brunswick County government is asleep on the job.
I don't think they're doing their job.
On top of all the safety issues, some citizens are pointing out a lack of fiscal responsibility. Brunswick County spent about $14,000 over the last 3 years renting what scaffolding they do have at the courthouse. Now, it could have just been purchased for a fraction of that cost. Plans are in the works to completely remodel the historic courthouse, a multi-million-dollar project, but those plans may take several more years to complete. In the meantime, you may want to move quickly when you're entering and leaving the courthouse.
An 8 News investigation exposes major safety concerns at an area courthouse. Now a state agency is demanding answers. Investigative reporter AJ Legault is live in the studio with the latest on his continuing investigation, the Brunswick stew. AJ?
Christina, after viewing our reports about Brunswick County not adequately addressing safety concerns at their historic courthouse, which is home to a State Department of Motor Vehicles branch office, the head of the DMV fired off this letter to members of Brunswick County government demanding assurances that their customer safety is not being jeopardized.
They have major issues with their courthouse since 2009. That's when a condition assessment of the building was done. What was found was a number of structural issues that were cause for concern. Roof leaks compromising a truss and girder, bird droppings holding moisture and hastening the deterioration of the lightly framed portico ceiling, increasing loads on the fragile area standing directly above the front door. The report goes on to say it's a matter of some urgency, and that until a structural engineer's recommendations are fully implemented, county employees and the public should not use the front door or portico. The structural engineer concurred with the previous report, writing some things need to be done immediately. Cordon off the entire portico, prohibiting its use and that of the front entrance. Erect scaffolding under the entire portico ceiling of sufficient strength to protect against collapse. Fast forward 3 years, and our report showed the engineer's report has not yet been fully implemented. We found the portico was not completely cordoned off.
Anybody can walk underneath here. The only thing showing that it may have been cordoned off at one point is some rotted rope lying on the ground.
Part of the portico is roped off with some string, but there's no signs warning of danger should you cross under. The scaffolding, supposed to be under the entire portico, is only erected near the door, which is still in use. This lack of action by the county to follow the engineer's recommendations certainly brings into question the safety of every person walking into and out of the building, which houses the county treasurer's office and a local DMV branch. Shortly after our report aired, Virginia DMV Chairman Richard Holcomb fired off this letter to the county saying he's very concerned about the alleged safety issues, and he wants satisfactory assurances that DMV customers can enter the courthouse without risk to their safety. During our investigation, County Administrator Charlotte Woolridge gave us assurances.
The engineer's report says that the entire area under the portico needs to be cordoned off. It isn't right now. Why is that?
From our perspective, we are in compliance with the report.
Should people be up there on that area under the portico that's not protected by scaffolding?
The entire area is protected.
But those don't seem like satisfactory assurances, since they appear to fly in the face of what our video clearly shows. The letter from the DMV commissioner goes on to say if the county is unable or unwilling to provide assurances or a viable plan to ensure the safety of their customers, DMV will suspend or terminate the agreement they have with the county.
The letter from the DMV is dated November 8th. 6 days later, Brunswick County has yet to respond. Now, sources also tell me federal investigators are now looking into whether any criminal action took place in relation to some of the other issues we exposed in our Brunswick Stew series of reports. Well, if you'd like to watch our complete investigation, just go to WRIC.com and under the News tab, click on 8 News Investigates.
3 years and one 8 News investigation later, a local community or a local county is finally taking action to protect citizens from dangerous conditions at the courthouse and DMV. Investigative reporter A.J. Legault provides us with an update on his ongoing series of reports called The Brunswick Stew.
There is no danger. That's what Brunswick County Administrator Charlotte Woolridge repeatedly told us. But after our reports aired detailing how the county was ignoring a structural engineer's warnings that the portico ceiling of the courthouse could collapse at any time, the county finally took action, barricading the entire front of the courthouse with construction fencing and wire mesh.
They finally done it because Channel 8 showed it, I feel like.
Bill Hudson's been pushing for some time for Brunswick County to address safety issues at their historic courthouse, which is home to a branch of the DMV and the county treasurer's office.
I'm glad to see my grandkids or anybody else's kids are not having to walk under this.
Brunswick County's known they have major issues with their courthouse since 2009. That's when a condition assessment of the building was done. What was found was a number of structural issues that were cause for concern. Roof leaks compromising a truss and girder, bird droppings holding moisture and hastening the deterioration of the lightly framed portico ceiling, increasing loads on the fragile area standing directly above the front door. A structural engineer then told the county in this report that some things need to be done immediately. Cordon off the entire portico, prohibiting its use and that of the front entrance. Erect scaffolding under the entire portico ceiling of sufficient strength to protect against collapse.
Do I have approval of the agenda?
When a citizens group called Brunswick Better Government, of which Bill is a member, asked us to investigate the situation several months ago, we found those safety warnings being, by and large, ignored. Some scaffolding was placed directly above the front door, but that was it.
Anybody can walk underneath here. The only thing showing that it may have been cordoned off at one point is some rotted rope lying on the ground. Do you believe county employees or the public are in any way being put at risk with the situation at the old courthouse as it stands right now?
Absolutely not.
When we questioned County Administrator Charlotte Woolridge, she gave us some bizarre answers that didn't seem to match the facts.
The engineer's report says that the entire area under the portico needs to be cordoned off. It isn't right now. Why is that?
From our perspective, we are in compliance with the report.
Should people be up there on that area under the portico that's not protected by scaffolding?
The entire area is protected.
But after we aired our report, Virginia DMV Chairman Richard Holcomb fired off this letter to the county saying he's very concerned about the alleged safety issues and he wants satisfactory assurances that DMV customers can enter the courthouse without risk to their safety. While the county is yet to respond to that letter, we found they are now addressing the safety issue.
It's about time.
By barricading the front of the courthouse and having employees and citizens use a side door.
Do you think you've been put in danger walking in and out of there when they haven't been taking proper safety precautions?
It's possible because if they didn't have anything up and something's wrong, it's possible something that could have failed and fell on somebody.
I'm glad they're doing that, and it took too long to do it. A lot of people's lives might have been jeopardized by not taking action.
We're still waiting to hear how the county will respond to the DMV commissioner's demand for answers about the safety of his customers using this courthouse. In Brunswick, A.J. Legault, 8 News.
It was your story that really got our attention.
It was an 8 News investigation on dangerous conditions at this area courthouse that prompted a state agency to take action. Investigative reporter A.J. Lagos joining us live now in studio to update his ongoing series, The Brunswick Stew. A.J.?
Juan, last month we detailed how Brunswick County government leaders had ignored and misinterpreted blatant safety warnings at their historic courthouse, which also houses a branch of the DMV. Well, tonight, Virginia's DMV commissioner discussing the actions he took in response to our report.
Well, AJ, let me first of all thank you and Channel 8 for making us aware. We saw your story, and then within a couple of days we were starting in corresponding with the county.
The story that caught Commissioner Holcomb's attention detailed engineers' reports showcasing structural concerns with the cupola and portico ceiling directly above the entrance to the Brunswick County Historic Courthouse, which is home to not just county offices, but also a local State Department of Motor Vehicles branch.
Your story brought to our attention that there could be problems with the entrance into that building. Absolutely, we took that very serious and acted on it very quickly.
That quick action is in sharp contrast to the way Brunswick County responded when they first learned of the safety issues. Back in 2009, a condition assessment of the building was done. What was found was a number of structural issues that were cause for concern. Roof leaks compromising a truss and girder, bird droppings holding moisture and hastening the deterioration of the lightly framed portico ceiling, increasing loads on the fragile area standing directly above the front door. The report goes on to say it's a matter of some urgency, and that until a structural engineer's recommendations are fully implemented, county employees and the public should not use the front door or portico. The structural engineer concurred with the previous report, writing, some things need to be done immediately. Cordon off the entire portico, prohibiting its use and that of the front entrance. Erect scaffolding under the entire portico ceiling of sufficient strength to protect against collapse. But we found those warnings being, by and large, ignored. Some scaffolding was placed directly above the front door, but that was it.
Anybody can walk underneath here. The only thing showing that it may have been cordoned off at one point is some rotted rope lying on the ground.
Seeing our report, Commissioner Holcomb says they immediately realized this was a situation potentially putting thousands of their customers at risk.
Obviously, the safety and security of our customers and our employees in our full-service offices is extremely important to us.
Holcomb fired off this letter to the county demanding satisfactory assurances that DMV customers can enter the courthouse without risk to their safety, and threatening to close down the DMV branch if the answers were unsatisfactory.
The threat that we put in the letter about potentially suspending DMV services was not an idle threat.
In response, Brunswick County barricaded the front entrance of the building with orange construction fencing and wire mesh. Folks looking to do business inside are now required to use the side door. And County Administrator Charlotte Woolridge provided the DMV with this letter from a recently hired architectural firm stating that they are addressing the identified structural issues in the previous reports. Commissioner Holcomb says the answers he's received are satisfactory, so the citizens in Brunswick will not be forced to drive way out of their way to conduct DMV business or be concerned with a ceiling crashing down on top of them.
So your message to your customers that are down there and use that DMV Select, you feel that it's safe as it is?
Absolutely. The steps that the county has taken, we are comfortable that that is a safe and secure environment.
On a side note, shortly after our reports about the courthouse first aired, the state fire marshal went in and found 3 other safety violations, including inaccessible fire escapes and exit doors in the basement, supposed to be accessible in the case of an emergency, locked with keyed deadbolts. Situations the fire marshal required they fix immediately. Now, our Brunswick Stew investigation was the result of a viewer tip. If you have something for me to look into, send an email to ajinvestigates@wric.com, or you can also find me on Facebook under AJ Investigates.